Welcome into the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast presented by SeatGeek, a podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Pelicans Podcast. I'm Gus Kattengell with you, and we'll be joined shortly with Jim Eichenhoffer as we got a ton to get into the return of a fan favorite and, more importantly, more weaponry or an arsenal to the Pelicans offense coming back tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. 3 games in 4 days. Jim will help preview that here as well, including that play-in tournament quarterfinal game that is coming up on Monday. But a back-to-back this weekend. The number 1 draft pick overall likely will be playing tonight for the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama. That's always exciting to see here as well. But what's even more exciting is coming off of a win. Pelicans did so back on Wednesday against the 76ers, 124-114.
Well, Zion in the scoring mode. Hook pass. McCollum for 3. Got it.
Welcome back.
Nothing but net from the right wing.
Missed 12 games. And again, he will not have his conditioning, but shoot.
Indeed. Welcome back, CJ McCollum, who had one heck of a performance. 20 points for him. He had 3 threes to go with 4 rebounds, 5 assists, a block, and 2 steals. What's remarkable is coming back and getting ready to go and play the way they did. Head coach Willie Green.
It's great to have CJ back. We all felt his presence right away. His ability to space the floor with those guys, to make plays for himself and his teammates, his leadership on and off the floor. So we're grateful to get CJ back healthy.
And as for that process of coming back, CJ sort of detailed what it was like to deal with lung and rib injuries.
I was concerned because it's the second time, and I was like, let's just make sure this isn't, genetics or anything like that. So just speaking to the pulmonologists and the experts and just trying to get more imaging and just to get a better understanding, like, was this trauma or do I have some issues that we need to be worried about? And it was a trauma-related injury because of the broken rib or the impact of, getting hit. And it's funny because I got hit going up for a layup against Boston when I was in Portland. I was exposed. I was up and I got hit. And it was a similar situation when I went for the loose ball. I reached and I got hit when Trey hit me. But I was a little worried because, you work so hard to play this game and you don't ever want to have those types of health issues, that extend beyond basketball, right? You want to play, you want to leave your mark, and you want to move on and live a long, healthy, happy life. So I was a little worried, but then once I got more feedback, and then once I seen how I felt, 3 days, 4 days in, once I started working out, got on the bike first, I started treadmill, and I started running, and I was like, oh, okay, like I'm gonna be fine. And then it was resolved pretty quickly. I was on oxygen, and that was the weird part, right? Being on oxygen, I felt like an old person. I was on oxygen for a while. I looked at my wife, and I was like, is this what it's going to be like when I'm older? You know what I mean? Like pushing the oxygen to the bathroom and stuff. But I did that for 4 or 5 days, and then I felt great in terms of my breathing. And then I was just about ramping up and getting ready to return, just trying to figure out when that would happen.
Stutter step, drives, buzzer beater, layup, brick, hit the bottom of the rim, rebound Williamson. That is his 7th. Up the floor, CJ. Alley-oop steal!
You saw that one coming. You saw it coming. Philly went for the steal. They didn't get it. And Z's flying down the left lane.
Zion Williamson led the team with 33 points. He should have been a perfect 11 from the floor. The NBA said that attempt that he had at the beginning of the fourth quarter that was a block turned out to be a miss. Anyway, 11 of 12 for him, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. He had 4 that first quarter, 3 steals, and 33 points. And afterwards, kind of had a good feeling about where this team can sort of go. He was asked, what is the ceiling for this Pelicans team this season?
I don't think we have a ceiling. I say it all the time. We just need to become elite with the small nuances of the game. Like tonight, late game situation. We can't just give away 20-point leads like that because in the playoffs, if that's where we're trying to go, we won't make it or that'll cost us a game, and every game matters.
So with the win, the Pels now 10-9 on the season heading into this weekend's play. All right, let's bring in Jim Eichenhoffer from Pelicans.com. At Jim_Eichenhoffer is the way to follow over on X, on Twitter, any other social media ways that people can follow you?
No, I've had a few people try to convince me to get on Instagram, but I'm still Instagram-less.
Instagram-less.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is it the gram now, or is it called something else? I don't really know.
I'm not even on it, so I can't even keep track of what the
I was making
cool
sure.
way to refer to it is. I'm sorry on that
I
one.
hear you, man. I feel in a great mood. Obviously, it's Friday, so TGIF. Everyone feels good at the end of the work week. Pels are going to be busy, though, this weekend. 3 games in 4 days, Jim, but we got CJ McCollum back. We just heard from that in the opening segment. Remarkable, the recovery process, and then for him to come out and do what he did. Were you surprised by the way that he played on Wednesday?
A little bit. I mean, the fact that he had 11 points in the first half and just immediately, I think he had 8 points right off the bat, maybe before the first TV timeout. So, yeah, sometimes you think if a guy's been out for 3.5 weeks, he's going to have to ease his way back in, but he really didn't. He was good right off the bat.
I think one of the other things, too, you saw that calming factor, I guess, in that coach on the floor thing that it's tangible. We can speak about it. I know media and fans kind of feel it too, but you go to that fourth quarter where, the graph is pacing and, the hair is coming out and all that. And look, we talked about this back on Wednesday with JD. This is still a team that's learning to win, going through the phases of that. And part of that is what Zion talked about afterwards, as we heard here as well. You have to learn how to close games. They got up by 29. You took care of business without Joel Embiid, an MVP, right? I mean, There's no doubt with what he means to that team. But those little things matter. And when it got to 8, Coach subbed in Zion and CJ McCollum, and the very next possession, CJ knocks down a jumper to calm things.
Yeah, you mentioned the calming presence and the execution in the fourth quarter, and I think even more directly speaking, it was really nice in several instances on Wednesday. No offense or disrespect to some of the other guys or some of the guards and wing players, but it was really nice when the ball swung and somebody's wide open that it's CJ McCollum taking that shot. So, I mean, we saw that over and over again. This is going to be the case even more as the Pelicans get healthier. That the guys that are taking some of those shots are not just good shooters. They're guys that the other team is like, when they see them wide open, they're like, oh no, how did we let this guy be wide open? Because this is probably going to go in. Yeah. So that was really nice to see.
Well, and the other thing, too, think about it, right? The game before that at Utah, 17 threes for them, 7 for the Pelicans. Well, CJ comes in 3 for 3 from distance. It's not that you forget, but that's another added element of his scoring ability to be able to do that. But 5 assists, 4 rebounds, a block, 2 steals. To have somebody that can just come in like that after missing 12 games, Jim, and fill the box score, I had expectations it'd be nice. And I was hoping, hey, hopefully by the weekend in that play-in tournament game Monday at Sacramento, he'll be like CJ. I thought he exceeded my expectations of what he would be able to do in that game.
He definitely did, and what you said was exactly what I was thinking in terms of the difference between the way things went in the Utah game/games and the way they went Wednesday. So, yeah, that was very noticeable that, there were situations against the Jazz, and one of the big reasons why they didn't get a win in either of those 2 games was just some chances to make open shots, and you mentioned the three-point shooting was a struggle as well. Well, hopefully that will be less of a struggle and very much more infrequent where that's a problem because of the having CJ back and some of the other guys too.
It's incredible. Zion Williamson, again, led the team in scoring, 33 points for him, Jim, in 33 minutes. 11 for 12. At the end of the game, it was 11 for 11. He was even asked about it, the very last thing in post-game media session. And he was like, wait, they did what now? Apparently started a fourth quarter, which took 7 minutes and 25 seconds. I just made that up. But my point is it felt like it took forever. And I'm referring to the first 30 seconds of the fourth quarter. He went up for a shot, and it was blocked. Now, if you take a shot in your foul, Jim, it doesn't count as a shot attempt.
Right.
Apparently, a blocked shot counts as a foul attempt.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, Gus, because this was something that, Willie Green is very mild-mannered. He doesn't really get worked up too much about many things, but he specifically, after practice on Thursday, mentioned how he was disputing that. And the part that I didn't understand specifically from the play was, so if it's a shot attempt and not blocked, there's no way the ball lands almost on a photographer the way it did. And if it was a shot attempt and is blocked, there's also no way that the ball lands that far off the court. So, I mean, I don't think there's any way that you could look at that play and not say he went up to try to shoot, the ball was deflected, and it flew way out of bounds. There's just no way. I was no physics expert.
So you're saying a deflection, not a block.
I just don't know how in terms of physics, how if that's a shot, the ball could land where it did, unless I think it was Mo Bamba maybe that they credited with a block.
Yes.
Unless somehow he was like trying to send it into like the 10th row. It's just not possible.
So the ball did go in a direction, but you're saying was more of a deflection. Him going up for the shot, the ball was deflected out.
Yeah, we see it happen all the time where the ball flies that far out of bounds. We don't see the ball land that far out of bounds on a shot.
Yeah.
I just don't see it, but.
Regardless, we'll say that he was part. But the point is this: anything that went towards the rim went in, and that's the good thing about it. And look, you look at what he did there. So that's impressive, first and foremost, right? Any shot attempt that goes in, and 33 points. That's impressive. I love the 3 steals. Man, he had 4 assists in that first quarter. He wound up with 8 rebounds and 6 assists in a game. But am I as impressed by the fact that he was 11 of 12 from the free throw line?
Yeah, that was great. I mean, that's a big development for. I mean, he's going to be getting there all the time.
Man,
he's getting fouled constantly.
He's been struggling a little bit this season.
Yeah, no, I mean in terms of free throw attempts,
right.
Whether or not
both, yes.
Whether or not you're making them, that's another.
By the way, this just in, he got fouled in that Mo Bamba play. Just letting you know. I can say that.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that was a tough break all the way around. But yeah, no, I mean. Him making free throws, that was a great performance, probably the best performance of his career at the free throw line. He's had some good games here and there, but yeah, important to make your free throws. Pelicans as a team have had some close games they've lost because of missed free throws, so that was a big plus.
I think overall 124-114 that final nice win. Look, they shot 53%. The Pels, that is. The Sixers shot 51%. They made it a game afterwards, and I think all these are learning. Processes and moments. We talked about it with JD with you on Wednesday. Same thing, right? Every time you can be put in these situations, it's going to help you grow better as a team. So that gets me excited, especially with somebody coming back tonight, which we're going to get into here as well. But am I the only one that's excited about this team right now?
Gus, I think the positivity towards this team is spreading, and I think the awareness of what could potentially be building here is also kind of reaching a national level, especially for the people that are paying close attention. I know there's a lot of people nationally that are probably looking at the standings like, they're 10-9, Some guys have had some good starts. They've had some injuries, but, whatever. But, one of the things I like about Zach Lowe on ESPN is that he genuinely, by all accounts, watches tons of games, has a close eye on everything, has his magnifying glass out looking at the stats, looking at video, looking at clips. And he talked about yesterday on NBA Today how the Pelicans are a team that are really worth paying attention to. When you add everything up together in terms of they've weathered, I think, a very tough schedule. They've obviously weathered having a bunch of guys out with injury that are about to return or have returned. Zach Lowe in this clip talks about just how the Pelicans are a team that he really has his eye on right now.
Oh, really? Let's give a listen.
And this, to me, is the single most intriguing team in the West in terms of like those teams in the middle of the standings where you just don't know what you got. I think they have done fantastic work to be 10-9, given half their team is always injured. Zion is playing great, playing better every night. CJ's back. Trey Murphy's coming back. Our Woj just reported that. This team is all of a sudden going to have way more shooting around Zion with CJ and Trey Murphy III. Way more depth. Lots of lineups they can go to. This is a sleeping giant in the Western Conference, potentially. A really good team is in here somewhere, right, if they can stay healthy.
A sleeping giant, Jim Eichenhofer, huh?
Yeah, they're under the radar based on their record right now, under the radar based on, the start that they've had, but with the ability to really, I think, do some damage. I mean, we've talked a little bit about the schedule is definitely lightening up. You have to take advantage of that. They did lose 2 games to a Utah team that's below 500, but that was also without CJ McCollum and Trey Murphy and Matt Ryan. I would think will be back pretty soon as well. So you add all this stuff together, and I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the near future in the month of December.
So you heard that in the clip there. Trey Murphy, even he yesterday announced on his social media page that he was coming back and getting ready to go. He said at the beginning of the season, end of November, beginning of December. Well, it's December 1st, so right on cue on that. Yep. look, I didn't think CJ McCollum was going to play the way he did, but he started the season, so he had been playing some basketball.
Right.
Trey Murphy got injured in the summer, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So
September, I think it was.
So he didn't go through training camp. He didn't go through any of this stuff. Realistically, you know better than I do, and kind of help listeners understand this. And I think Aaron kind of touched on it in pregame and back on Monday. These players just don't get on the floor and ready to play. There's a process to this. So for him to be able to play tonight, what has he had to do?
Yeah, I mean, he's been working out for a while. I would say going back multiple weeks, we've seen him on the court and practice court and been like, he looks pretty good. He looks like he's making progress. I think he's played some more 5-on-5 lately. We saw him, I think after shoot around on Wednesday, he was out there on the court playing 5-on-5. So, yeah, there's a bunch of different things that you kind of need to clear to be able to say, okay, now I can go back on the court and play. I'm guessing that he'll be under a minute restriction. Even CJ was on a minute restriction in the game Wednesday, even though, like you said, he has played games this season. It's not like it's been a couple months since he's been on the court in a competitive situation. So, but, man, it's exciting to have Trey back, especially just building off of what he did last year where he was one of the most improved players in the league. And by the end of his second season, I was, and a lot of people were like, man, this guy's got some serious potential. I've said this multiple times that I think eventually he can be an all-star. So, I mean, that's the kind of player that they're getting back in the lineup.
It's not that we forget because it happened, right? But what's coming back to the Pelicans lineup is a guy that competed in the three-point contest and the dunk contest last NBA All-Star weekend.
Right.
That means you have skills. If you can shoot the threes to compete to be the three-point champion and made the finals of the dunk competition, Jim, that's what's coming to this team. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of hearing the Graf and myself yelling, dunk the ball, please, with all these different layups. But this is a guy that can bring so much energy in that. So what exactly do you think he's going to bring, especially with this lineup? Look, Matt Ryan's still to come here as well after he gets back from being injured here. But what Jordan Hawkins was able to do, and I thought he had a really nice game again, even this past game where he had 16 points, only 3 threes. I say that, but my point is he can score and do so many other things with that 5 rebounds, 2 assists, but just adding those, I can't wait to see what he has because there's other pieces around him.
It's funny, the level of expectation and performance that Jordan Hawkins has reached so far. You're like, yeah, he only had 3 threes. That's how good he's been. That's unbelievable. But as far as Trey goes, I mean, biggest thing that jumps out immediately is just the shooting, just adding another 3-point shooter, another guy. You mentioned how he was in the dunk contest and the 3-point contest. He just has a unique skill set that's very wide-ranging, just the athleticism that he has. And I think another thing that's kind of underrated about him coming back, too, is his defense. He has the ability to be a really good defensive player. He gives them a bunch of versatility because he's, 6'8", 6'9", maybe 6'10" now, and athletic the way he is. So you already have this group of defense-first guys that Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, Najee Marshall, Jose Alvarado. Now you add another guy. I don't think Trey's ever going to be known more for his defense than his offense just because he's that good of an offensive player, but he is another guy that they can match up against different wing players and forwards, and he can do a good job on. I thought last season, too, he made a nice leap in terms of just being disruptive on defense, getting some more steals, just being more of a factor. The Pelicans' running game, transition game, has been great the last few weeks, especially since Najee Marshall came back at the beginning of the last long homestand. And so there's another guy that you run the floor, you push the ball. Maybe the other team brings over 2 guys on Zion or BI, and now you have Trey Murphy spotted up at the 3-point line for a transition 3. So, I mean, it's exciting in so many different ways to have Trey.
Do you hear the excitement in Jim's voice? I know fans are as well, and I can't wait to hear Graf and Joel and everybody call that first 3 that goes in. Well, that's going to happen, of course, Jim, as we're going to get into the Spurs now tonight. Victor Wembanyama, it is something that I think fans have to see. I mean, he's unbelievable in terms of what he looks like to begin with, and the fact that he's an NBA player and the skill set he has. But this Spurs team, when you take a look at it, Jim, it's not where it's going to be, obviously, right? When you look at them coming into the game, they're 3-15, dead last in Western Conference. But what do you see when you see them so far?
Yeah, I mean, they're on a 13-game losing streak, so I think a lot of people were probably kind of hoping that they would win last night against Atlanta. They lost by 2. It was a game that went down to the last few seconds. They had a charge that Trae Young drew that kind of ended the Spurs' hopes of being able to win that game or at least send it to overtime. But they're definitely hungry for a win. One of the biggest things that stands out to me about Wemby is that he's actually played in 18 of the 18 games. So I think a lot of people thought, and maybe this will happen later in the season, but I think that people thought there'd be some load management with him. And honestly, as we sit here Friday morning, I can't guarantee that the Spurs won't decide tonight that they're going to sit some different guys in a back-to-back. It's kind of what they've done over the years. But the fact that he's been durable and that he's been on the court for every game so far has been really impressive. They started out the season 3-2. They won 2 games in a row in Phoenix. This was, about a week plus into the season, and I think a lot of people, including me, were saying, man, this team maybe is going to be better than people think. I think people thought maybe if everything breaks right, they could be a 500 team. And at that point, it was like maybe they could even do better than that, but they haven't won since then. So I think they're doing a lot of experimenting. A lot of people have talked about how Jeremy Sohan has been their point guard. He's not really a point guard, but they're kind of doing that as a way to try to get him some reps at that position and just try a few different things. But as we know, it's bad enough to have a very young team if you're trying to win games in the NBA. But if you have a young team and you're experimenting with some different lineups and some different ideas, it's really not conducive to getting into the win column. And I think that's what's happened to them over the last month, that they just haven't won a game in quite some time.
Willie Green's been saying it. You want to win your home games, and that's something that's very important for the Pelicans, especially if you want to, get out of that play-in spot at the end of the year. So far, Pels being able to take care of some business so far here at the Smoothie King Center, as they are 7-4 at home. And you know what? You must be doing some good work. They're letting you out this weekend. You're not trapped here, sir. You're going all the way to Chi-Town in Sacramento for the play-in tournament.
Yes, I am, Gus. And hopefully, I'll not just be going to Chicago and Sacramento. Hopefully, I'll also be going to Las Vegas at the end of that trip. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You and the grass on the strip.
Yes, I don't think Vegas is right. Vegas is not ready
it's
for that.
It's definitely not ready for that.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to being in the United Center on Saturday for the game against the Bulls. Like the Spurs, another team that's really struggled lately, they did get a very good win Thursday night. They beat Milwaukee in overtime, which was huge for the Bulls. They had lost a bunch of games in a row before that. I think they were really looking for answers, kind of trying to figure out what was going on. How are we struggling this much with some of the veteran guys that they have, like DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic. So it's going to be another back-to-back for the Pelicans. We're going to have to figure out how they're going to sort through who's playing and who's not. We know for sure that CJ McCollum is not playing because I tried to explain this on Twitter, and I think people kind of understood that basically from the 4-week mark of his lung injury, from that point to 4 weeks later, he's not allowed to travel. But apparently the 4-week mark comes between Saturday's game in Chicago and Monday's game at Sacramento because he is able to fly Sunday to Sacramento and then play in the game Monday. So Trey Murphy, not sure what his situation is going to be. Zion hasn't played in back-to-back, so something we're going to have to monitor. And
kind of sounds like you're trying to get a little 10-day here. I mean, you're going to be on the trip, just going to give you a jersey?
Maybe this is why they cleared me for this road trip.
That could be.
But yeah, you'll have to stay tuned to Pelicans.com and other Pelicans
NBA
platforms
debut.
to find, well, not that, but to figure out, to follow who's playing and who's not playing. The injury report for Saturday will come out before 1 p.m. Central Time. So at that point, we'll probably have a good feel for who is going to play in Saturday's game. We know for sure that CJ's not going to play. But either way, looking forward to this road trip, and hopefully it'll be a long trip. It's kind of funny to think about that based on the way that the Pelicans are going into next week, where they have a back-to-back Friday, Saturday. And then they have to fly cross-country to Sacramento. Kind of a bad break because some of the other teams in the West are all home on Saturday.
Isn't that something?
That's
something.
I don't know. Huh? I wonder if next year the NBA says, okay, no one plays a back-to-back leading into the quarterfinals, so that this situation can be avoided. But nonetheless, the Pelicans, including myself, are going to have to pack for either what could be a 4-day trip or a 9-day trip, because if they win in Sacramento, they could make it to the Thursday semifinals and then the next Saturday championship. So we'll see. Hopefully it is a 9-day road trip and not a 4-day road trip.
2 things I need to know in the final 60 seconds here. Do you like deep dish pizza?
No, I'm more of a New York style guy.
Long and thin?
I'm
with you.
First couple times I went to Chicago, I did the deep dish, and I was just like, I just don't like it that much. So I'm sacrilegious when I go to Chicago and I order the New York
I won't
pizza.
turn it down. Right. But I do
too.
like something that I have to fold here, and it's just a big old slices of pepperoni.
I'm not a big crust guy, so that
I'm kind of with you. I'm the same thing. Second thing that's more important that all our listeners are paying attention to right now. Do you have a Vegas outfit?
I do not.
No?
And here's the thing, though.
Sequins, jacket, shades.
I've only been to Vegas in July, and that kind of, for Summer League, that kind of limits your wardrobe options. But I'm going to have to get on this because we're leaving tonight after the game. So if I'm going to come up with a Vegas outfit, it's going to have to be done in the next couple hours.
Well, you see, you mentioned that, and Aaron Summers and I called the games for Summer League this year. I was more of the Derek Carr sort of outfit there. Sleeveless and shorts because it was hot.
Yes, it's about 110 there in July, yep.
Jim Eichenhofer, always a pleasure. I love doing this with you, sir. Safe travels, and we will hear from you again on Monday. Follow Jim at Jim_Eichenhofer over on X and on Twitter, whatever makes you feel comfortable. And more importantly, Pelicans.com, you're going to have all kind of info. You'll be posting stuff not only about after tonight, but tomorrow's game, and then obviously when you get into Monday against Sacramento.
Looking forward to it, Gus, and I'm looking forward to being on location Monday for the Pelicans podcast that day.
That's going to be good. I'll try to miss you. Maybe I'll put like a little caricature in your chair there so it feels like I'm looking at you. Sounds good.
Whatever works for you, Gus, I'm cool with.
I'm already getting a little teary up. Hey, thanks as always for tuning us in, as always, on this edition of the Pelicans Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, presented by SeatGeek. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time right here on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, presented by SeatGeek.